All right. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for your time supporting us with Matador's Insights, Social Justice, Education, and Nonprofits. Today, I am so pleased and honored to have awesome alumni with me today to really show us and give us their pearls of wisdom, everything that they've done in their respective industries. I hosted this particular series with the intention that I want students to explore and engage with alumni as they learn more about what you all do in your spaces of work and the awesome talent that you bring to the industry that you're part of. I did put each of the bios through my social media, website, everything. So, and even handshakes. I hope that everyone was able to read them because they are awesome. But I wanted to show and share the PowerPoint that I put together because I gotta show it. All this work, I gotta be able to share it. Okay, here we go. Yay! I wanted to do this much because I was very excited to get this going. So yes, my name is Esther Lanier, and I'm the Associate Director for Employee Relations. And as I said earlier, it is our first of three Matador Insights for Social Justice, Education, and Nonprofit. And our panelist for today, and at least joining us right now so far in the webinar, is Michelle. Sorry. There we go. See, technology already. Michelle Dominguez, and she's a program manager for Social Justice Partner LA. And we have Amber Chapman, a director for Workforce Systems and Policy for Unite LA. And we have Dr. Shining Chen. She's a senior education consultant for Educate University. It's a pleasure to have you all here. And I wanted to just now stop sharing this so we can actually see you all. So just to share a little bit about more of this information that I'll be sharing with you, I just wanted to ask some questions and make it very casual so that the students that are joining us can really engage with you and ask any questions through the chat or through the Q&A. But my first question is for anyone that would like to address it. This is not going through, a certain line or certain order, but can either of you share your journey into your current role? What inspired to pursue a career in social justice, education, or nonprofit? So anyone that would like to take that question.
I'm happy to kick us off if that's helpful. Hello, everyone. Go Matadors. Amber Chapman. Yeah, I have a really interesting story. The work that I do is an intersection between social justice, community activism, and nonprofit, through nonprofit. And I came to that through grassroots organizing. So it's like a intersection between having always worked since I was 14 years old and that constant drive to stay connected to the community and making sure that I'm improving and enhancing the community that kind of helped me to understand and get on my journey towards the work that I do today. I was not a traditional student. It took me a very long time to earn even my bachelor's degree. As I, hopped in and out of community colleges, and finally found myself in the middle of a disaster zone, trying to identify ways that I can be of service. Um, some may know or remember Hurricane Katrina happened, and a friend and I, who was involved in community work, chose to move to New Orleans, start a nonprofit organization, and help with the rebuilding of the nonprofits. And as part of that rebuilding effort, we brought in a lot of college students to come in during their break time to come and gut houses, clean up, and try to support organizing residents to return to the city. And so many people through that experience were surprised I didn't have a degree and didn't understand why I didn't have one. And so it was through those conversations with those college students and professors that I realized that there's a whole field that does this work. And so I got involved in sociology and then eventually went back to school so that I can become a social worker, and then entered the field of nonprofit as a direct service provider as a social worker. Growing up in programming and design and working with young people around workforce development is how I landed to the current job that I'm in. But it was really that early stage of like discovery and learning through work and community activism that really brought me even into the sector.
Awesome. Anyone else would like to share their journey into your current role?
Yeah, I can go ahead and piggyback really quickly. A little bit, just what things that resonated with me, with you, Amber, is that I was a career changer. So there was a bit of an intersection for me with business and education. So I wanted to be an entrepreneur. After I graduated college, I wanted to be my own, just be my own boss. I ran my own business for like 10 years, and then it was the market crash, right? So I had the reality of knowing how to pivot. And I had a business, and it was called Ocean Body Care. We made premium personal care care products. Loved it, but with the economic downturn, we did not survive. And so it was an awakening. And so I had a lot of downtime, and through help of friends and family, my father really encouraged me to go back to school. And I thought I initially wanted to go back to school for social work. I knew I was a helper. I knew I wanted to help people. And so it was just a matter of finding what would be the right fit for me to do that. And then that's kind of what led me on my journey. I knew I was good with kids, and I was listening, and so that's what made me sign up and become a teacher. And I found myself in a master's program in teaching. So life has many twists and turns.
Yes, indeed it does.
I totally resonate with having to like meet a challenge with the choice. That's how I would say I landed in my career now. I work at a social justice nonprofit, Social Justice Partners Los Angeles. Um, so I'm going to try to tell three stories kind of quickly. The first challenge, actually, while I was at CSUN, unfortunately, as an LGBTQ youth, I was displaced from my home kind of quickly, needed to find a place to stay. I stayed with my partner and I found out about working on campus through Res Life, and I became an academic mentor. So I actually was only houseless for about, I think, like 3 to 5 days because I was able to get interviewed quickly and get that job. And that's how I fell in love with being on campus and working with students. Asked my advisor, how do I get to do with you what you do? And she said, go to grad school. So um, after I went to grad school at USC, another challenge I had was to get my first career started in higher education. I worked at a university out of state, first time really living away from my family, which was a good experience, but I found myself to be really depressed, honestly, and missing my family. So the choice I made there was just to move back to LA, even though I didn't have a job secured as much as I was trying. But I was able to be back with my family, and in those challenges, I was able to work at my first nonprofit, um, which was actually CSUN Strength United. And the third challenge that landed me in my position, which I've worked in social justice, nonprofit, and education, so I felt like this battle was made for me, is I found a really great opportunity being the first director of student life at a college, getting to build that position. But after a few years, I realized the workplace culture was really taxing on my soul. And so I had to make a choice, and I chose to follow my values and actually ditch higher ed and just follow a workplace that was resonating with me. And that led me to work in the social justice field now. So I had to be like, doesn't matter that I studied higher ed in grad school or have this 10-year career. I'm going to try something different. And I'm really happy that I made that choice. So I would say that I didn't really choose the career I was in. It's just kind of a series of challenges that I had to make and choices that led me to where I'm at.
Yes, all very unique journeys, I would say, that you guys have definitely followed. But with that being said, what skills or experiences would you say were instrumental in helping you succeed in your various different journeys? You want to start,
Yeah,
Amber?
I can,
Oh,
or
all
I
right,
can
go ahead.
jump in.
All right, go ahead.
You
Yes,
know,
please.
so
Let's
so
take the conversation.
it's so interesting how what you the things that drive drive your work, right? So to tie in a little bit about transitioning from, college and going back to school and teaching and getting the teaching space and finding my footing, I found that now with the work that I do, I'm also doing, educate, use work, where I'm trying to really do workforce development and that intersection with business and education. But I found a lot of the work that I also do is also at a high school. I work with students and I'm an instructional coach as well. But what I find is when we're talking about, identifying your things that you want to do in a career that you think you like, we usually start around with things that you're good at. What do you think that come authentically to you, right? So we try to look at your strengths. So if you're an extrovert, you're going to be really good at talking to people, you're going to be good at recruiting or sales. So, you can tie in those careers with what naturally is authentic to your personality. And the things that I found that were natural, and so it's finding your strengths. And so I found that I was very much a helper. I like to help people, and it was, I would find that was my strength. And then also a doer, like I was naturally good at getting the job done, right? So when it came to deadlines or, putting on the career fair, like I was really good at it because I could execute. So those were things that I find that I always share with people, like, what are you already naturally good at? And find that as the first place to start when you're looking at identifying skills and what that strength could be.
Definitely.
I totally agree. I think to add to that, thinking about my own kind of like skill sets, I recognize that even in the places where I didn't feel that I was as confident or as strong that were required for me to really grow in my profession, my passion and my commitment to the work, that grounding, I had an anchor for what would allow me to adopt the skill sets that allowed me to be successful. So both relying on my natural ability, the things that are innate to me, but then also being open to growing in spaces and finding really good guidance and mentorship along the way has been very, very helpful in allowing me. And I'm still stretching, even in my as long as I've been in this field, continuing to be open to new skills and to engage with folks who are willing to support you in growing in those spaces and then taking those risks has been extremely useful.
Mhm. This is a
Yeah.
question that just came to mind. We always find those advocates, the spaces that we work at, and students a lot of times ask, how do I find a mentor? I'm in an internship or I'm working full time. Um, I'm looking for that person that can help me along the way. As you mentioned, Amber, with the different individuals that were helpful to you in your path and are still helpful in your path. What would you say are some of the qualities you brought in that connected you to someone? Say, you know what, Amber, I'm taking you on. And it might not have been like, spelled out that way, but they just became that, relationship.
That's a great question. Could I often ask myself the same
Yeah.
even now? But I will say, I think my strategic thinking, my ability to be collaborative, to lead with curiosity, to ask questions that most folks are thinking but won't say, just like leaning in and being active, right, in the space has allowed folks to feel comfortable sharing their own levels of like, I want to know more too, their own curiosity. And then that exchange has allowed me to take advantage, both peer to peer and then those who are in positions beyond mine, of their skill sets, their insights, and their pathways. And the connection and the networking has been made in that way.
Do you have anything to add, Michelle?
Yeah, it also actually connects to the last question as well about skills and experience that have been successful. I'm a big advocate for professional associations and volunteering. That's been my guide through in higher ed. I was in NASPA. Now I'm in emerging practitioners and philanthropy. So anytime when I got a new career, I ask, what is a professional association that I should be involved in? And there's volunteer opportunities. So I'm a co-chair now for that professional association. They have a mentee mentor program, and that's how I got involved first before becoming on the steering committee and the leadership. And my mentor there through that mentor program is actually the one who was able to get me helped me reach my goal of also starting my own business and writing for a publication as well. She introduced me to someone who worked for that publication, and now I'm able to kind of contribute things. So I really kind of gamify, like, I don't know about gamify, but like connecting with others as part of my success. For example, just yesterday in a board meeting, my executive director was asking about who are some funders that the board can connect us to for funding our work. A board member said, "Oh, Rose Hills Foundation might be, a good one to reach out to." And I got to direct message my executive director, "Hey, from the professional association I'm in. Actually, I work with someone who is at Rose Hills Foundation," and I was able to kind of have that yes moment, all because I was proactive in being involved professionally and volunteering where I could, and mentorship opportunities. It doesn't have to be a mentor who was also like older than you. It could be your peers who, eventually might get promoted, and you can have one-time connections that are really fruitful as well, I would say.
Definitely. And actually in the chat, there was just that question from Marissa, where can I find a mentor? And, we know specifically that professional associations can be an opportunity, our colleagues, our networks. And I would say that in my own experience, mentorship has happened very organically. It hasn't been like, I'm looking for this, and it's just like, developing those relationships, I would say, whether it be a colleague or even your own boss can be your own mentor, so so that's kind of how I remember the first time that I got the first job I ever got. I went out to lunch with my boss and I said, John, I need a mentor. And I just said it. And so then he said, what am I? I'm here. I'm like, oh, great. 20 plus years later, here we are. And he's still the person I call to, like, and what about this and what about that? And he's there to give me his insight. And that's really why it's awesome. So another question that was in the chat is, given the circumstances of what is going on now nationwide, do you all think there will be a high demand in social justice?
Tell
What
us, Amber.
No, no, go ahead, Shani. Well, I just wanted to add, a point that one of your closest mentor groups or network are your teachers and professors. They are literally active and in the field, and they will be your peers upon completion of your studies. And so they're a great connector to opportunities for you while in school and beyond school. I have professional relationships with folks who skilled me up for the work that I'm doing. Regarding social justice, I'm gonna let you take that away, Shani.
Well, I think to add to what you were saying too, also these events like this, where we're getting these really intimate opportunities to make connections with people are really instrumental. I usually find myself loving these opportunities because I already know I want to reach out to Amber, and I already know I want to reach out to Michelle for other things that we've got going on. And Esther, I already have a hook for you because I was just at a career fair earlier today that I want to share. So this sense of kind of small communities are where I really think I thrive. So that's really how I try to look at these intimate connections. And usually when I know what someone shared, I can be able to also piggyback on that and reflect and be able to have that, and that builds conversation around making a stronger connection as how we maybe can benefit from each other as well, right? Sometimes it's not about you just getting something, but it's also you bringing something to the table when you're a mentor-mentee relationship. So I think that's often overlooked, right? We just want someone to help us, but no. It's a two-way street as well, right? But the second part of the question is about this. I think we are in a time of greater than ever for these types of this type of work that we're going to do, and I'm realizing that, and the strength of the two words that I come to my mind are voice and identity. Well, I'm a firm believer representation matters. I would not be here if it weren't for the people that came before me. So I'm going to speak up and be that voice, and I am going to speak up and be that identity for women that look just like me, brown people that look just like me, and be that face for our youth, and continue to that. Now more than ever, you cannot erase us. It is erasure what is happening, and we need to speak up, and we need to be vocal if to be seen, or else someone else is going to write our history for us, and that's a choice too.
Yes, most definitely. Which leads me to the next question in terms of looking at the industry specific question here. What do you see shaping the future of your industry, and how should students prepare?
Looking at you, Michelle.
I know I have a little bit maybe non-traditional answer, which is why I hesitate to start, but I'll just go for it.
Right.
Trends and changes, they're always going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
It's just an ever-evolving industry. And I find it's better for myself to focus on regulating myself and my emotions and knowing my strengths, what brings me joy, what brings me peace, and focusing on that. I'm not saying not to stay informed. I, subscribe to newsletters of organizations that I like. I volunteer. I go to conferences. I follow up with people who I think are really interesting, like I probably will with the folks in here. Um, but I think sometimes it can be a little taxing to kind of always chase the trends. I'm happy to stay informed and go to what interests me, but like stay grounded and kind of what Shani and Amber have already mentioned is knowing yourself and your strengths and pursuing that what brings me kind of joy and peace.
And if I can add, the industry that I'm in, albeit workforce development, nonprofit space, it's a people-serving industry. For as long as there are people, there's going to be a need for practitioners and leadership to kind of take the will of people and the needs of people and kind of like support through funnel through different career opportunities. So do I think that the job that I have today may not be relevant, but the skill set, the competencies that I have will be transferable to the next iteration of the work that I do, because I'm in this people-serving industry.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and I have to speak on AI. I think it's disrupting a little bit of all of us, especially like in education. I think what happens with the challenge, I think with what it is that sometimes we're in institutions, and institutions move very slow. Unlike the speed of light that AI is transforming industries, and in addition to transforming our kind of day-to-day interaction. So I think the things I'm facing challenges are our student engagement, because education moves a lot slower, it's clunkier. We don't get that instant innovation in a classroom sometimes, is specifically driving engagement for students. And the disconnect also happens with students, right? Because they're used to going a million miles an hour, and then they come into a classroom and they were slowing them down to like 5 miles an hour. And there's this huge digital gap, when it comes to learning and teaching. And oftentimes it's up to the practitioner, what you were saying, Amber, like the teacher. And if the teacher is not necessarily technologically savvy, there slows us down a little bit. So anyway, those are just things that I know that I see us struggling with when it comes to writing, critical thinking, conversation. We just need to learn how to use AI and not be afraid of it in terms of developing these skills when it comes to like what we need when it comes to critical thinking, problem solving. They're problem solving through ChatGPT and all these other AIs, but how do we also continue to put that in another form and fashion to continue to drive their skills?
Most definitely. AI definitely has been here, and how we leverage it within the work that we do is going to be very important. Now, as you reflect on your work, yes, we do have rewards and challenges in the spaces that we're in. What would you say is one rewarding moment that you can remember that really has solidified for you? I'm in it for the long haul in this space.
What I love is I don't just have one moment, but I can say collectively, um, especially from my earlier experience as a practitioner, direct service counselor, I live in the community that I serve, and I get the pleasure of bumping into people who I've supported and I've guided. Um, and I get to see the immediate benefits and the long-standing benefits of the work that we've done together. And I have one specific moment where, as an educator for a charter high school for youth ages 18 to 24, I had an adult, a parenting young lady who was around 21, who was having a really, really difficult time navigating her educational experience as a single parent with a young child. And it was just rough for her throughout the year. And I had to keep her grounded, keep her focused, and have some really difficult conversations with her. Um, the day she walked the stage, she presented me with the Post-it. And that Post-it said, "If not for you, then I would not have this. And I just appreciate you." And when I say difficult moments, like she's angry at me, doesn't want to talk to me, I'm the worst person in the world. But that acknowledgement of how necessary the support that she received from me, even when it was hard criticism, just double stamped why I do the work that I do. And I have some legislative successes and investment successes, but it's the person to person for me that is most meaningful. And I just remember that I still have that framed, that little Post-it frame saying thank you from her.
Oh, that's awesome. Yes.
In education, I have very similar stories. I have been to baby showers. I have kept personal relationships with my students. Like you said, when you can see the challenges that they're going through, and then they get that opportunity to go to graduation. I cried my first graduation. So when you get kind of that emotionally invested in the outcome, you see them struggling, but man, when they get that win, the whole village graduates. I always tell them, I think you think you're graduating. No, but we are all graduating when you graduate. So it definitely has a village vibe. Um, when we get a chance to really rally around our groups. And I work with schools and the students that are small groups, and so they're not large. And that also is so beneficial because you really do get to really have lifelong relationships with some students so far.
I'll go ahead and just allow the students to be in the conversation here with us. Just there's only 3 of them in there, so please, if you have any questions, just unmute yourself and ask any question, or feel free to still put it in the chat or the Q&A. A lot of students are always asking us also, how do I start? How do I break into the field that I'm interested in? Were there any key individuals that, opened up that door for you, or what was that like for you?
I
Well,
think, oh, go ahead.
Oh, well, I just came from a career fair. So I really feel like things that have been super helpful for me. I crashed CSUN's career fair. I was not a CSUN grad student to get my job. And I think sometimes you've got to break some rules, right? And so sometimes that was super helpful. Like I find that I know that I do better in person. So I find it try to find in-person opportunities to be able to talk to people, to be a career fair today too at the SoFi Stadium. I mean, talk about a lot of people, right? Because it were all sports and entertainment teams. But I found one guy who gave us one. So I was with another student, and we found one guy, and he gave us his card. I was like, he's going to be our friend. So you got to kind of be intentional about how you make relationships. And so find someone that's a little warm, a little fuzzy, that it's just gave you a little bit of a door open, and then you're just going to make that person your bestie. So sort of like those are kind of the nuances that when you get an opportunity to go to these career fairs, they're getting bombarded, but it's also the follow-up, right? What does it look like after the career fair is over that you engage with somebody or try to figure out where else to meet a friend along the way? That's where I find that getting into even these careers, like, so if you're at CSUN right now, Esther would be my best friend. You know, you've got to lean in and find your besties somewhere along the lines that are going to kind of give you a wink and a nod or a heads up, or, you know, just also consider what you're bringing to the table. I love the first question that you ask, how do I find a mentor? Gen Z, you guys don't think you guys have any power, but you do. And use and leverage that power. You're talking to a bunch of Gen Xers in the room. You're not leveraging your skills, and or you're not leveraging your advantage of your age. So remember, you're also bringing a voice and also something to the table, and leverage that in a social media platform. You know, bring something that your generation is doing that you can offer to your community, so that when you are having that as leverage, you can share with whomever you're trying to get their attention. Be like, here's my social media. And you're also bringing voice to the industry sector that you would like, but in your own way.
Mhm.
Myself, I've had a lot of structured and unstructured access to opportunities that kind of solidified for me that this is a career I wanted to go into. And so when I was able to get my first job, I had a wealth of experience having organized and supported community through volunteerism, and other transferable skills from other jobs that I've had. I leveraged them, my communication skills. I came from, working sales jobs, and sales phone, my ability to collaborate with folks. That's a lot of my volunteer work, my understanding of the issues. That's, all of that steep and grounding in the grassroots community organizing that I was doing. And so I used a lot of those spaces to build upon skills, so that when I was in my first job or second or third job, I could leverage those insights for interviews and just really sharing about who I am. But then there's those more formal like internships. Like if there's a career that you like and there's an organization that does that work, you should be on their website, see if they have internship opportunities. Most do have internship opportunities that are formal, whether paid or unpaid. If you have access to and the time to be able to access those, you can. And now even more than ever, there's versatility with virtual or hybrid or remote work experience that can occur. So taking advantage of those things that are online and in person as well. Sorry.
Yeah, definitely. And just with the Career Center, we do have resources. For example, Parker Dewey does have micro internships, and they're paid across various different industries. There's Forage as well, where students can get to do a project for 6 to 8 weeks, and they work off getting that experience. And so there's many multiple ways to break into the industry of your choice. I would say it's really that creativity and that, I would say, unconventional way of approaching how you can tap into an opportunity too.
Esther, if I could add,
Yes.
when I was a student, I really much leveraged, the scary word for it is informational interviews.
Yes.
But really all that meant is, for example, y'all are here in this panel today. If
Yep.
one or all of us interest you, what I would do as a student is email or find them on LinkedIn and say, hey, I really appreciated the specific insight you gave. I would love to stay connected for a first message, maybe. And then maybe a second message later on, or maybe in that first message, you're like, hey, I would love to actually learn more about this. Do you have any capacity to meet at a time of your convenience? And start to build a relationship and just kind of pick their brain. People kind of like talking about themselves. And definitely as students, I would use my I'm a student, I'm learning, and people usually want to be able to offer that help. That helped me a lot.
Yes, most definitely. You mentioned a variety of different skill sets, strengths that are pivotal, I would say, in being successful in your respective industries. Are there any other qualities or skills that that as your industry is evolving, that this is a skill that it's really hot right now, and bringing that awareness to the students?
All of the skills I think of that I keep coming back to are really about relating to people because it is people work. So your ability to communicate, connect with people, make them feel good when you're speaking with them, is really, I feel like, at the core of kind of all the skills that, so I wouldn't say they're really like hot or new, but they might be overlooked. Um, Also, one thing I learned from someone else is like, follow the money. Money can give people a lot of power. I didn't really know a lot about money, so I made a point to like, let me learn about budgeting, let me learn about the funders in the landscape. And I felt like that was a really valuable skill for me and kind of related to a trend because I work in nonprofit philanthropy as well that I'm really appreciating is kind of following the expertise of people with lived experience. So anytime I have the opportunity to learn more about shifting and sharing power or how to change systems, I think is will serve me kind of in any job or role that I serving people in the future.
Mhm.
Yeah, I just want to plus one with what Michelle said. I do a lot of employer engagement, meaning a lot of industry sector work where I'm going in and I'm talking to employers and I'm asking them what types of skills and experience is necessary to attract new talent for the positions that they're vacant. And many of them just often, especially with young people coming new to the industry, they're often talking about those essential soft skills. We refer to them as soft skills that are really hard to find someone in this day and age. The technical skills can be taught. They have the tool set and the onboarding paper and all of that to teach the technical skills. The
Mhm.
skills that can't is your communication skills, your critical thinking skills, your ability to follow up on project, organizational skills, writing. Those things are very important. And most folks are looking at if you have those things if those things are prominent in you from the interview, then they are very much interested in bringing you on and then teaching you everything you need to know to do your job and do it well.
Yeah, I think along that lines, it's very much not only just having like the analytical skills to be able to do it, but also being like a good follow through person, right? So sometimes when we come into jobs when we're new, we want to be told what to do in a lot of ways, right? And so we know that we don't want to mess up, or we don't want to, we want to do a good job, but also too in a business community or a business, sometimes it's very fast paced, and that there's gaps that need to be filled. So I find that people that just kind of naturally just can step up and be like, you know what, I can really fill this in, or I can, do this. I find that proactiveness is also kind of really highly desirable for a business that might not have enough bandwidth for their particular roles that they're trying to fulfill. So I think a bit of that can-do attitude and, just willingness to try things even though you may not be very good at it. And I'm going to always work and just show Gen Z that you have leverage as well. What are you bringing to the table? Like, I can do this. I'm gonna say like the video editing skills are amazing. Anybody that can edit anything these days is always a great school skill. And navigating social media for old folks that don't feel very comfortable are always a great skill. So
We have a question in the chat, and it's how do you engage with students, parents, and educators to promote change? What are your measurable goals for achieving social justice in education?
I can speak to this from the higher education, working higher education perspective. Usually the answer from my experience at colleges is to form committees.
Mm-hmm.
And many times these committees struggle or to maybe, maybe, okay, I want to address the measurable goal part because sometimes the things that are important are not things that can be as measurable. So a lot of times a committee might like think about putting on events, which are very important for making people feel included and stuff like that. But the kind of change that I was seeking when I was a co-chair of a diversity council at a college, which was kind of tough. And the measure was like, how do people feel about being on campus? Like, do they feel a sense of belonging? For education, are there different outcomes in terms of their academic success? Um, are they showing up to class? Are they involved? Also, how do they treat the staff? Is there disparities in how and across gender and race on how staff are being promoted or paid? These kind of like maybe deeper structural, where is the power held on campus change is usually what's kind of hard to bring about, but I think is really important to try to measure and attain, to get a sense of like really the measures, how are we treating the people and what are the health and wellness and belonging of the people that we're serving.
For sure, adding to that, because that's a great answer. Um, a cornerstone of the work, a value that I have and the work that I lead, collective impact and systems change work around workforce, equitable access to education and workforce. Nothing for people without those people. So there are collaboratives and convenings that are happening where folks who are impacted and are using the services, whatever those might be, need to be in the room and in the process in an intentional way, to support with either the creation or the enhancement of any program aimed to meet whatever measurable outcome that it's aiming to meet. And so a core value of, that I include in my work is making sure that if it's something related to curriculum design and, students are as much a part of that conversation as teachers, as well as employers, where the outcome is for access to a career. Employers need to be in the conversation. How do I know that I'm skilling, creating curriculum or designing curriculum that's actually preparing my student to access a job there? And so those are some of the things that I'm looking at from the lens of my work when I'm in the space.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that, Amber, so on point. I mean, more than anything, it's with the community because if we're not serving the people in the community, then we're not going to get the change or the outcome that we want. We have an initiative going on right now with a metric to increase dual enrollment engagement, right, for students. So we have a metric we have to meet. And so what am I looking at? I'm looking at the X factors that are not being seen that's going to drive enrollment. X factors are cultural norms. Remember, if we have certain populations, students have to work to support their families. Students have to be caregivers for their families. So those have to be considerations, right? Also, how to support the families. So cultural norms are important. I think also our own bias as to maybe why things are not working, and coming to assumptions or our own kind of cultural bias, or adult bias or any of our perspectives that are tainting our lens. And the third piece for me is really engaging parents, and that's a struggle sometimes for extremely busy parents, to making sure that they have buy-in as well to be able to allow their students to be able to participate in these amazing opportunities. So it's a bit of a trifecta when we want to talk about metrics. And so those are the things I feel like we have to address.
Are there any questions from the students? Feel free to unmute yourself if you like to ask a question. We have about 5 more minutes or so. Want to be mindful of your time. Yes, go ahead, Marissa.
Hello, ladies. I just wanted to say thank you for the interpreters for interpreting. I myself am hard of hearing, so I appreciate having the interpreters here. Although ASL is not my first language, but I am actually switching back into deaf studies. I came from New York. I did my deaf studies degree, my associates out there, and then transferred over here to CSUN for audiology. And then I'm like kind of in a difficult situation because I'm such a people person. Back at home, everything was like I used to work at bartending and I was always engaging with people. But then once the pandemic happened, it was just like, oh, it became from a social butterfly to an introvert. And I'm like, now I want to get back out there again. And I feel a huge passion in staying within the deaf community, but also being in activism and working with people and social justice. And I always speak up for what is right. So I guess like my question is, now that I'm going back into deaf studies, should I minor in, I don't know if even CSUN has social justice. Is it sociology? Would I look into that?
I think,
We'll say, I'll
go
go for
ahead.
it, Amber.
I was just gonna say, well, I could speculate. Your first step would definitely be to speak to a counselor to understand what the options and avenues are within CSUN and around in the community around,
Mm,
so that you can make the best choice for yourself based on where you want to go. That was the first thought, because I wouldn't want
mm,
to give you my own opinion and it not be properly guided. So
mm.
I think you have a very important question that you're asking for yourself as you're at a crossroad point where you want to decide where best to invest your time.
Right.
This is why engaging your counselor, your college counsel, is very meaningful.
Okay. Thank you.
I will share from my experience in the particularly nonprofit social justice, not higher ed. That is very much like academic degrees, yay.
Mm,
But nonprofit social justice realm, when we've been hiring, we were hardly like, what was their minor and what did they study? A lot of the things is like, what was the experiences that they've had, whether volunteer or where have they worked, or do they have a good recommendation from someone? Um, yeah, just in my experience, sometimes there are other ways to gather experience than minoring or kind of what your degree is in that often
that
sometimes
makes a
prove
lot
more
of sense.
valuable. Yeah.
Mm, mm. Okay, because I'm also, I have I just had a 2 month, my baby just turned 2 months. I have two kids. So thank you. How does one, 'cause, I mean, I'll be back in school, the kids will be in childcare. How does one look into volunteer work that would align within, like, is there any sort of information to look into, like websites, stuff like that?
I would be
Esther.
curious to ask you, Michelle or Esther, are as a door, like what we're talking about, the experience that you're bringing to an organization is your ability to sign. That is my observation. So you have an offering. If we're looking at engaging in basically being multilingual, and how could you leverage that as a way to get a way to get into an organization that you're interested in, because your work that you already do is so valuable. You are just adding in addition to it to be able to make sure you're reaching broader audiences.
Mhm.
I don't
I
know
would
if
say
anybody
too,
else
from a career
has anything else.
perspective,
Thank you so much.
I would say, if there's already an entity that you are very fond of, and you present yourself and this is what I've have been able to accomplish, based on your experiences and knowing the business that they're in or who they serve, how your skill sets and your experiences will be of value to them. So you're pitching yourself, you're also putting yourself or setting yourself apart from saying, I can help in these particular areas because that particular organization is what they do. So offer the value that you bring in, based on what appeals to you about that particular organization and aligning your values to who they are, and connecting your experiences.
Thank you so much.
Mhm.
And then I just put in the chat a website that I rely on very heavily when I'm in a new space that I want to get more experience in, and that's just volunteermatch.org. A lot of different, all of these communities, these nonprofits post volunteer opportunities through this website, and that's a place to get started. And then I would even add, you have your whole identity is meaningful, and you might find through another aspect of who you are that there's space to have multiple aspects of self kind of be seen and utilized and cared for. And so think about the vast networks based on your all of who you are that may have something specific to this thing that you're seeking and thinking. So just consider that. So what do I mean? It might be a mommy group that you end up like connecting to, and then they happen to have hosts or connections to opportunities that speaks to other aspects of who you are.
And I just put another one in the chat too. Idealist.org is another great one too. So we have reached our time. Are there any additional questions that you may have? I am so honored to have had you all here today. Learned so much from each of your experiences, and I want to, keep this conversation going. So if there's any other space that, you want to also partner with the Career Center, just as a plug-in for the Alumni Association, that's how I found all of you. Well, with Michelle, for example, we actually worked at USC together. So I went to my local network and that's how I was able to, get her to help us with this particular first event. And also Neil, although he's not in this conversation today, he is actually a friend. And so there we go. So you got to work with your networks, right? You got to start at home, so they don't have to be far away. So
Absolutely. And I learned a lot about, there's something called weak ties, and you can Google it. Weak ties are soft referrals. People may have made soft introductions, and they're often much better than your strong ties. And so your social network becomes a little intermix between weak and strong ties. So consider what sometimes might be this room or an introduction from a friend to another professional where we can lean in. Google weak ties. It's just a great concept on making sure we're knowing how to leverage relationships in a professional manner.
Truly enjoyed my time. Thank you for the opportunity to talk to you all and be in community, and looking forward to other engaging events.
Likewise. Thank you so much for having us.
thank you so much. Have a great evening, and until next time, go Matadors.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Ole.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.